Hold yourself back from filling yourself up, or you'll tip off your stand. You can hammer a blade until it's razor sharp, and in seconds, it can blunt. You may amass gold and jade in plenty, but then the more you have, the less safety. Are you strutting your wealth like a peacock? Then you've set yourself up to be shot. You bring about your own disaster because you've got too much. Let go when your work is done. That is the way of heaven. Well, in the Western world, and certainly in capitalist society, I guess not even just in capitalist society, but in a capitalist society where you are trying to incessantly climb the rungs of the world economic ladder or maintain your dominance at the top of that ladder, it's pretty commonplace to feel that it's a worthy and good pursuit to gain excess of money, excess of growth, excess of belongings, excess of attention and clout and influence and power. And I think that it's pretty well understood that there are a lot of mental health issues and non-mental health issues that have befallen the capitalist societies that fall into that realm, the realm of incessantly trying to climb the rungs of the ladder or maintain their status atop the ladder. Because it rewards and incentivizes and deems a glorious pursuit all of those excesses that I just described. And this verse of the Tao is sharply warning against that. You can hammer a blade until it's sharp, and in seconds it can be blunt. I like this sentence. It stands out to me from the rest in the sense of the others are saying just don't and here's why, and don't and here's why. And this is sort of another don't and here's why, but it's from the standpoint of all of these tangible, or I guess money is sort of intangible these days, but all of these of the world physical assets that are being sought and being accumulated, and even the non-physical ones in terms of power and clout and influence, those can be erased at the blink of an eye. And you can think of the thousands or millions of ways in which that could happen. And it can just destroy everything that somebody of that mindset has poured their life into in pursuit of those things and feeling like they had feeling like they had accomplished something. And so not only does accumulating all of these assets provide you with less safety, but it can just evaporate. And I would say, in the defense of some of these capitalistic ideals, if these things come about as a completely unsought after outcome of something that you are doing or pursuing out of your natural flow, your natural state, then so it goes. And that's one thing. And if that's also the case, then you may be more apt not to be distressed or despondent if it's all taken away at the blink of an eye. But if it is sheerly for the pursuit of that wealth or those assets or that power or that influence, then this is where you get into some real dangerous territory. Lacking of safety, possibility of it all evaporating, and setting yourself up, as it says here, to bring about your own disaster because you've got too much. Additionally, we can think about the influence that incessantly seeking after and wanting to accumulate more than is really necessary, how that impacts society. And I know people don't like to talk about this in general, but there are certainly impacts on other individuals, on the system as a whole, on what we value and devalue, and the ways in which we view our counterparts in the world and in our communities. And it sets up this sort of, I guess, ladder is again the best way to describe it. These separate rungs of ladders that are just defined by the more powerful are at the top of the ladder and the less powerful are below, and the wealthier at the top and the less wealthy are below. And it's probably worth considering. If you are constantly overflowing your cup with things that you don't need, and that's coming about because you are actively pursuing it. Again, not that it's a secondary or tertiary effect of something that you are just kind of experiencing and flowing with anyway, but if that is the pursuit and that is the outcome, it might be worth the strong consideration of the impact that that has on others and how it is that you deal with that, because you do in some way, even if you don't like to think about it or talk about it. Insisting that others are lazy or unintelligent or not street smart or foolish with their money or with their pursuits or what have you. These are all ways in which you normalize the fact that you are pursuing things to overflow your cup and take much, much more than you need, as opposed to providing that to others or allowing others to come to it. You do that by setting up a dichotomy of there's us and there's them. And the way in which that, whether you want to admit it or not, impacts your health, mental and otherwise, is something to consider. In the sense of the Tao saying, you bring about your own disaster. And if you look around, it may not look like it. And if you go to cash a check, it may not feel like it. But it might be worth doing some deep reflection on that, if this is sort of the situation you find yourself in. And just to acknowledge it, I have carved out this space that maybe you have accumulated much, much, much more than you need because you are taking a natural path. And so in that way, you're not pursuing it for the pursuit of those things in and of themselves. However, it may still be worth considering in what ways you give back to those less fortunate, less, I'll put this in strong air quotes, less capable, or people who are just befallen by hardships. Whether you had the same hardships or not, people respond to them differently. Just because you overcame a certain thing and somebody else is now experiencing that same thing, your insistence doesn't need to be that they overcome it as well. Sometimes the way out is with a helping hand. And so it may be worth considering. Is that the path you're taking, or are you on a different road? And is that really where you think you should be? And the last thing, I know this is a long one. Last thing I will just say, and let go when your work is done, is the next to last sentence of this verse. This is another hearkening to release yourself of the outcomes of these things and don't feel that you have to incessantly pursue all of this. Do what you want, do what you need, and let it go. What comes of it will come of it. What doesn't, or what doesn't won't. And in this way, you set yourself up to be doing the work naturally, doing the work for the sake of doing the work, not for the power and the clouts and the assets.